Doyara Sagara Dasa Karuna Kori. Oh hey Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Dasa Karuna Kori. Dia Padachaya Shorohe Amai Tomara Charana Dori. Chaya Bega Thomi Chaya Dosha Shori Chaya Guna Deho Dase. Chaya Satsanga Deho He Amare Bochashi Shangera She. Ekaki Amar Nahi Pai Balo Harinama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kori sharabindu diya deho Krishna nama dhane. Krishna se toma Krishna dite paro tomara shakati ache. Amito Ganga Krishna Krishna Boli Daitava Pache Pache. Ohe Vaishnava Thakur Doyara Sagara Dasa Karuna Kori. Jaya Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Vaishnav Thakur Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jaya Prabhupada. Do the Shad Goswami Ashtakam. Hare Krishna. We offer obeisances to the Vaishnav. And then 6 goswamis of Vrindavan. That's the most beautiful slide you have. Of course, the words are nice. We don't have like pictures. Where's Shamalangi? We need pictures. I have one with pictures. All right. We'll do it then, the comments all together. Krishna Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro Premamritam Nidhi Dhira Dhira Jana Priya Priya Karo Nirvatsaro Purito Shri Chaitanya Kripavaro Bhuva Varavahandarago Vande Go back to one, please. So this is a song written by Srinivasa Acharya, and he's glorifying the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Shad Goswami means 6 Goswamis. And he names them in the last line. So Vande, you'll see in the last line, Vande means to offer obeisances. And then he names them all. Rupa, Sanatan, Raghu, Yugao means there's 2 Raghus, because the word Yugao means that it's 2 people. And Sri Jiva Gopalakal. So this prayer is about how the 6 Goswamis, who are the representatives and disciples of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they absorb themselves in this process of Krishna Kirtan and dancing, singing, and they were absorbed in the nectar of prema, like an ocean of prema for Lord Krishna. And also, dhira dhira jana priyo. Priya means to be dear, and jana means the people. So what kind of people considered the Goswamis to be dear? That Priyakara, all of them, whether they were following regulative principles or whether they were just people on the street living their lives who were unkempt, they all appreciated the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Why? Because they were always absorbed in the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and distributed bhuvi bhuvo to all the people of the world. So he's worshipping the 6 Goswamis in that way. Number 2. Nana Shastra Vicharanayika Nipuno Sadharma Samstapato Lokanamita Karino Tribhuvane Vanyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Radha Vinda Bhajana Nandena Mataviko Notice that on the altar we have a picture of the 6 Goswamis on the far left. So you can see that photograph taken with iPhone 14. And they're standing underneath the Panchatattva. So that's appropriate, because they're disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, next generation coming down from the Panchatattva. And here in this verse mentions how their work was to go through all the authorized scriptures and put together a clear path that anyone could follow to come to the perfection of life, Krishna Prema, based on the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Especially Jiva Goswami had written extensively to establish the teachings of the Sampradaya. And why did they do it? Hitakarano, for Lokana, for all the people of the world, they did good. Distributed mercy throughout the three worlds. They were always absorbed in this mood of worshipping the lotus feet of Radha Krishna, performing bhajan. 3. Shri Gauranga Gunanavanadidao Shadha Sadvidyambika Papa Kappa Nikrintano Karivita Govinda Ganamrita Vardhanayaka Nipuno Kaivalya Nishtarato The Goswamis, taking the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, were absorbed in this ananda, which overcomes people's tendency to want to merge into the absolute. This was the teaching of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to become attracted to the beauty of the lotus feet of the Lord and His Leela, and give up not just the material world, but also the idea of becoming one with the Lord. Next. Sheshamandalapati Shrenim Sakatu Javad Ubadi Ganesha Kaukarudaya Kopina Kantashrita Kopi Pavar Samrita Dilahari Kalola Maho Rupa and Sanatan Goswami had the second and third spots in the government in Bengal, chief minister, finance minister. They controlled the money, they controlled the entire kingdom. They worked under the emperor at the time. But when they met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they were no longer interested in their wealth. They gave it all up to live a very simple life. Kalpina means they wore just a cloth around their waist, no clothes to speak of, and they were always absorbed in Gopi Baba. Pujat Kokila Hamsasara Sadhana Kirne Madhura Kure Nana Rata Nipara Mula Vikapa Yuga Vrindavane Radha Krishna Maharishambra Bhajato Jivartato Yohura Lord Chaitanya had sent the Goswamis to go to Vrindavan to reveal the holy places of the Lord. And here, Kujat Koki Laham Sasara Sagana. There, in Vrindavan, one can merge into the beautiful environment where one can remember Krishna's pastimes. the beautiful cooing of the cuckoo, the swans. It's an all opulent place, but it's so sweet. The opulence is suppressed. One simply sees a little village, but underneath the roots of all the desire trees there are valuable gems. The only gem the devotees are interested in is that of Krishna Prema. Six goswamis set the mode of worship for the Sampradaya, and Sankhya Purvaka means they kept track of their sadhana. They have a sadhana card. They'd write down how many rounds they chanted every day, how many times they bowed down, all the activities of devotional service, and practically Nitarhara Vihara Kari Vijato. They minimize eating, sleeping, to the point where they were practically not doing it at all. And how is that possible? They're absorbed in the qualities and sweetness of Radha Krishna Bhajan. Radha What was their mood in Vrindavan? They were practically mad, always. Sometimes they were looking for Krishna along the Radhakund, in the Jamuna, the various places, forests of Vrindavan like Mamshivata. They called out to Krishna here and there in a great pleasure, in the mood of separation for the Lord. Hey Radhe Vrajadevaki Chalalite, Hey Nanda Sunataha, Shri Govardhana Kalpapara Patale, Kalini Vandetaha, Oshan Sarvato Vrajapure, Keter Mahavigalo, Vanderu Patyanapano Raviyago, Shiva Gopalato, Vanderu Patyanapano Raviyago, Shri Shiva Here they're calling out, Hey Radhe, where are you? And Kutaha, where might you be now? Are you on Govardhan Hill? They were always in this mood of separation, looking for Krishna and Radharani in Vrindavan. Shad Goswami Ashtakam Ki Jai. Now, Dasavatar Stotram. And if anybody knows Bharatanatyam, feel free to dance. Or at least do the mudras. We'll sing this together also. Pralaya payogdi jale vritavana siveda vihita vahitra dharika vakeda kesha vadhita vinasharira jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare kalayate karunyamakandate Jayate Sakikite Krishnaya Turyam Namah Nechanu Jayate Sakikite Krishnaya Turyam Lord Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Now let's do the English to the Sri Ishopanishad. Yeah. Hamza 20. No, that's Shiva Ranjani. Prem's 20. Just the English, please. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because He is completely perfect, all emanations from Him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever it is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because He is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from Him, He remains the complete balance. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself, which are set aside as his quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on working in that way, for that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma. There is no alternative to this way for man. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Although fixed in his abode, the personality of Godhead is swifter than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he controls those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and yet he is outside of everything. He who sees systematically everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, who sees all living entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything or any being. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desires since the time immemorial. Those engaged in the culture of nascent activities shall enter to the darkest region of ignorance. Worse still are those engaged in the culture of so-called knowledge. The wise have explained that one result is obtained, and that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal Absolute. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and then another result is obtained by worshipping what is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities, clearly explained it. One should know perfectly the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and His transcendental name, form, qualities, and pastimes, as well as the temporary with its temporary demigods, men and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death and the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it. And in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys this eternal life of bliss and knowledge. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. O my Lord, O primeval philosopher, maintainer of the universe, O regulating principle, destination of the pure devotees, well-wisher, progenitors of mankind, please remove the effulgence of your transcendental rays so that I can see your form of bliss. You are the eternal supreme personality of Godhead, like unto the sun, as am I. Let this temporary body be burnt to ashes, and let the air of life be merged with the totality of air. Now, my Lord, please remember all my sacrifices, and because you are the ultimate beneficiary, please remember all that I have done for you. O my Lord, as powerful as fire, O omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances, falling on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you, and since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so there will be no hindrance to my progress. Ishopanishad ki jai. Shrimad Bhagavatam close. Yeah, just started praying with Dwani from like a B. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Are there any civil engineers? Fix the microphone. Hare Krishna. I'm Sadhwani. You have one more keyboard? It'll help me if I'm looking at it. Is there another one? Una más? That's all right. Oh, good, a small one. Does it work? I wonder if it's tuned to that one. Huh? So you play the A? I mean the B, sorry. Pretty close. Okay. Jai Radha Madhava 3. Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivardhari. Premanande Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudiraye. Uno más. Sugiwa. What's next? Thank you. Wait a minute. Where's the verses? Keep going. I'm not convinced. Can I see the rest of them? Didn't Shamalangi make a whole list? We chanted it twice, 3 times. See what I'm saying? From Sridhar Swami, it starts Sridhar Swami, then Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Aha. Vagisha yasya vadane lakshmiyasya chavakshasi yasya steri samvitam nashringam aham bhaje. Now do it in Prem Sidwani. You know how Nagisha yasya varane lakshmi yasha chavakshasi. Oh, you got it. Ya Vagisha yasya manane Lakshmi yasha chavakshasi. That's not how we do it. Hold on. Bhakti Renunciation Haitukiya Pratiyata Yayama Suprasidati. So it's then quick ride up and quick ride down, right? You starting from the B? Okay. Start from the beginning. Vagisha yasya varane Lakshmi yasya chavaksasi yasya ste hridaye samvid ham nashingham aham bhaje. One more time. Vagisha yasya varane Lakshmi yasya chavakshasi yasya ste hridaye samvid tam nashingham aham bhaje. Sampradaya vishuddhartam shriya nirbandha yantrita shuti stuti mita vakyam krishyami yatamati. Shrimad Bhagavatam Purvaye Sarvata Sambhishevatam Maya Tuvat Pashrishtam Utishtam upachiyate Mama Ratna Vanik Bhavam Ratnan Aparchintin Bata Asantu Santo Jiremi Naswa Swanta Vinodakri. Name Stivadusyapi Napi Bhaktir Narakti Raktir Natatapi Lalyat Sudur Magadeva Bhavami Veda Stutyarta Chintamani Rashi Kriknu Mam Nichayatam Avavekavayu Pravartate Pratayitum Balachche Likam Yata Swami Sanatanashi Krishnangri Bhastamba Gatam Valamba Prananya Shri Gurum Bhuya Shri Krishnam Karunavaranam Lokanatham Jagat Chakshu Shri Sukham Tam Upashraye Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Bolo. Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai. And today we'll look at the first canto, second chapter, 6th verse. That's the first answer to the sage's questions in the first chapter of the Bhagavatam. I may need that. Yeah. The first question that they ask is that Buddhini buddhi karmani shrotavyani vibhagasha ata sadho triyatsaram samudrita manishaya Bhuhi Badraya Bhutanam Yinatma Suprasidati. Suprasidati means, it's coming from the word prasadam. Prasadam means grace, a mercy that comes from the Lord. And prasidati, suprasidati, extreme satisfaction that comes from this descending mercy. So they're asking, Burini Bhuri Karmani Shrotavyani Vibhagasha. Shrotavyani, there's so many things to be heard in this world. And Burini Bhuri Karmani, there's so many duties to perform, especially if you follow the Varnashrama. You have to do everything just right. And every bath has to be on time, everything that, when you cook, when you wear clothes, when you go out, when you come back in, everything properly. So many things you have to do. Burini Bhuri Karmani Shrotavyani Vibhagasha Ata Sadho Trayatsaram Samudrita Manishaya. So he says, Atra, herein, whatever saram, the essence of all this is, samudrita, please pick it out for us. Because they're not there for very long. It's a short seminar, it's only 1,000 years. They didn't have time to go through all the Vedas and figure it all out. So they want to know, especially because they've already mentioned, Prayanal Payusha Shabya Kalavas Minyugajana, Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hipadrita. People are unfortunate in the Kali Yuga age because they're slow to take up spiritual life. And there's something in the atmosphere. Have you noticed it? I've noticed it ever since the big fight over whether you should have a Mac platform or a Microsoft platform. It's like, why the big argument? Just type. And ever since then, it's been downhill. Everyone argues about everything. Everything is polarized. Whatever you bring up, everyone says, yeah, the opposite is true. So this is a problem. Prayanal, almost always in the Kali Yuga, Prayanal Payusha Shabya Kalavasmin Yugajana, Manda Sumanda Matayo, people, Matayo, Manda Matayo, they have really bad ideas. Like, who thought up nuclear weapons? It's put everybody on edge. I don't mean to go into the subject too deeply because it's a samskar from my life. When I was in second grade, anyway, now I'm going into it. So the Manishaya, bad ideas in the Kali Yuga. And Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hupadrita. Bhagya Hupadrita. There are people in the age of Kali Yuga. Is this the word? Manda Bhagya. Bhagya means like good fortune, opulence, everything good. So Manda Bhagya. They don't get that. They're unlucky. Manda Bhagya means they're unlucky in the age of Kali. And Upadrita, above all, everyone's always disturbed. Therefore, he says, so now people don't have time, they don't have interest, they have bad ideas. So now let's find out. Please tell us, out of all the different rules and regulations and scriptures in the world, and all the things that are to be heard, and atasadyo trayatsaram, pick out the cream. What's the essence of it? What's the most important part? Samudrita manishaya, select it, and manishaya, the best of your knowledge, please give that. They trust him because, as I said in the beginning of in the first chapter, Veta tam saumya tat sarvam tatvatas tadanugrahat bruhu snigdasya shishya guravo kuhyamapyuta. They praised Sutta Goswami as being the one who has been submissive to his gurus and had listened very carefully with an open heart over so many years and has served. And therefore, they say, you're qualified. You can speak on all these things. So they trust him. So this is an important environment. This is where we grow in Krishna consciousness. Smaranta smarayantascha mita gauga haram harim. As the Bhagavatam says, smaranta smarayantascha, we sit in an assembly and we hear and remember Krishna by hearing, and then we cause other people to remember Krishna. And mito gauga haram harim. And then because of that, just by doing that, then mountains of sins are become smashed out of our life. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya Bibrat yupulakam tanum. Even though one's just beginning, and there's actually ultimately no difference between this sadhana bhakti and prema bhakti, because it's like a ripe mango or a green mango. Mango's a mango. But bhaktya sanjad shataya bhaktya, one thing leads to the next. If you associate with those with bhakti, and you hear in their association, then gradually your heart will ripen. It's a pakva to begin with, unripe, and therefore Narada Muni has said in the 5th chapter, the Bhagavatam, sometimes people take to bhakti, tyaktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer, bhajana pakvo ta patetato yadi. They take to it even though they're apakva, they're not ready for it, they're not ripe. And it's like, this is great, I'm in. So not only am I in, I'm a pure devotee. And then patet, they fall back down again because they weren't ready for it. He said, no problem, because bhakti is so powerful. Patet toyadi, yatra kwa babadrim abudam muchahim. He says, what did they lose? Nothing. They gained the great benefit of coming in contact with bhakti. And in due course of time, they'll come back to that, he says. That one never forgets the encounter or the embrace of Krishna once one takes to Krishna consciousness. Even if one leaves, he falls down from his position because he wasn't ready, then he's haunted from then on, no matter where he goes. I talked to a godbrother who is AOL. You know what that is? AWL. That's missing in action, is MIA. And then there's AWL, AWOL they call. Missing without leave, without leave. You weren't granted leave. No one said you could leave, but you left anyway. And although they've tried everything, they went out, got sick, got well, hung around an inkwell, all they could think of was like, oh, I just remember when I was in the temple. That's it. So Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says they're haunted by the ghost of bhava. They remember it again and again. And they just want to come back, even though it's hard to for some people. So, Bruhi Bhadraya Bhutanam means, please tell us, Bruhi. Bhadraya, for the good of all living entities, like Bhadram. Bhadram Te means good luck. Good luck to you. That's what Krishna told Brahma at the beginning of the creation. After he told him the Chatur Shloki Bhagavatam, he said, Bhadram Te, and then he went like this. Really personal. And good luck, Brahma. So Bhadraya, that's what devotees want. They want good fortune for everyone, not just humans, but also all living entities. My friend Divyanga, I was talking to him yesterday, and he said at the end of the corporate program we had, we end by saying Hari Bol, everybody, and he said just as he was saying Hari Bol, he was driving back from Sankirtan, and there was a truck driving towards him on the wrong lane, and he said he thought to himself, well, is this how it ends? Even though he only had a couple seconds, he was thinking that. But he was listening to the broadcast, and he also had the little red Prabhupada box going, because there was a bug in his car, and he wanted the bug to hear something too, so he put the Prabhupada box next to the bug. So he had the vibration going as he was listening, as the car was coming to. Luckily, the truck righted itself at the last second and missed. But why did I even bring that up? Bhadramte. Yeah, for good fortune. So I was remembering he was thinking about the bug, because the bug was in his car, and he thought, well, here, why don't you hear this for a little while? And he put it right next to the bug's ear, and the bug was like, huh. Next life, he'll be a great scholar. The bug, I mean. Yenatma suprasidati. So the whole intention behind their asking this question is, what is it that will bring prasad to the people? That's good work if you can get it. Only people who are non-envious can enter into this mood come into this seminar and say, how can we do good for others? Because everyone else is thinking, let me do good for myself, and if others fail, I'll say, oh, that's too bad, but internally I'll say, oh, great. More for me. This is envy, the envy of the material world. These sages aren't envious. They only want to do good for others. So they ask the question, what is it? What is it that we can do? Because people actually think about others. They want to do good for others. There's a sentiment for it. But how will they do it? Prabhupada tells a story about in his neighborhood, there was a child that had, it's not cholera, typhoid fever, and you're not supposed to eat anything solid. So the parents left the older child in charge of the younger child as they had to go out for a moment, and then the younger child said, I'm so hungry. So although he had been instructed not to, the older child went and got a paratha, and he brought it and said, here, take this. I'll do you a favor. But then the younger child got very sick because he wasn't supposed to take solid food. Even though the intention was there that I'm going to do something good, that he did something bad because he was uninformed. He didn't know what to do and how to do good. And Prabhupada said that he saw that the mother was beating the son. I know that's not politically correct nowadays, but he was getting some kind of a slap. And Prabhupada asked his servant what happened, and then he told him the story. So there's a way in which everyone, even if they want to do good, they may not know how to do good. So here they say, Bruhi Bhadraya Bhutanam Yena Masu Prasidati. What's the real way in which all living beings can be benefited? Well, how can they get real prasad, real mercy? Not as, I'll give you something, but it makes you worse. A phenomena of the material world, because people are in ignorance. They don't know what to do. So then the answer comes at first chapter, second chapter, text number 6. So this is the first answer to the question that the sages ask. And the answer is, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktirat hoksaje ahaitu kiya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati. So maybe we'll sing it. Because Raghunath Bhatta Goswami used to sing the Bhagavatam in 3 different tunes. He sang every verse in 3 tunes. I haven't figured out what they are yet, but I'm working on it. Because once I figure out what tunes he sang, that's what we'll sing. But for now, I have 2 tunes for today we can try it in. One is in Prema Dvani and the other's in the Tut called Todi. Right? You starting from Savai Pumsam Parodharmo Yato Bhaktir Hoksaje Haitu Kiya Pratiyata Yayat Masu Prasidati. Is that too high for y'all? No? Yes? It's a little high. Go 1 note down. Let's start with. Just go half down. Savai punsambaro dharmo yato bhaktir. Let's just try it with the harmonium first. We'll hear it first so the ear gets accustomed to it. Savai punsam daro dharmo yato bhaktir oksaje aitu ki apratiyata yayatma suprasidati. You got to get those. It's like 2 notes in one. That's part of Prema 20. Okay, try it again. Savai pumsambaro dharmo yato bhakti radhoksaje ahai tuki apratiyata hinatma suprasidati. Just play it. One more time. Sambaro dharmo yato bhakti radhoksaje haitu ki apratiyat inatma supras. So this verse is the answer. This could be so helpful to us because the right people at the right time are asking the right question. Hey, Balaram's back. Hare Krishna, welcome back. And while we're at it, we'll welcome back Vrindaranya. So here's their answer in the word for word. Sa, that, vai, certainly, pumsam, for mankind. Para, it means humankind, but ultimately we find that when you enact this way of bringing the greatest good, it's not just good for humans, it's good for all living entities. Yato means by which, bhakti, devotional service, adhoksaje, unto the transcendence. Haituki, causeless, apradiyata, unbroken, yaya, by which atma, the self, suprasidati, becomes completely satisfied. So this is the formula. And so people might want to know this because everyone's looking for happiness. And let's read the translation together. Maybe we get a little Prema Dhwani going in the background. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Purport. In this statement, Sri Sutta Goswami answers the first question of the sages of Naimisharanya. The sages asked him to summarize the whole range of revealed scriptures and present the most essential part so that fallen people or the people in general might easily take it up. The Vedas prescribe two different types of occupation for the human being. One is called pravritti marg, or the path of sense enjoyment, and the other is called nivritti marg, or the path of renunciation. The path of enjoyment is inferior, and the path of sacrifice for the supreme cause is superior. The material existence of the living being is a diseased condition of actual life. Actual life is spiritual existence, or Brahma Bhuta existence, where life is eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. Material existence is temporary, illusory, and full of miseries. There is no happiness at all. There is just the futile attempt to get rid of the miseries, and temporary cessation of misery is falsely called happiness. Therefore, the path of progressive material enjoyment, which is temporary, miserable, and illusory, is inferior. But devotional service to the Supreme Lord, which leads one to eternal, blissful, and all-cognizant life, is called the superior quality of occupation. This is sometimes polluted when mixed with the inferior quality. For example, adoption of devotional service for material gain is certainly an obstruction to the progressive path of renunciation. Renunciation or abnegation for ultimate good is certainly a better occupation than enjoyment in the diseased condition of life. Such enjoyment only aggravates the symptoms of disease and increases its duration. Therefore, devotional service to the Lord must be pure in quality, that is, without the least desire for material enjoyment. One should therefore accept the superior quality of occupation in the form of the devotional service of the Lord without any tinge of unnecessary desire, fruit of action, and philosophical speculation. This alone can lead one to perpetual solace in his service. We have purposely denoted dharma as occupation because the root meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains one's existence. A living being's sustenance of existence is to coordinate his activities with his eternal relation with the Supreme Lord Krishna. Krishna is the central pivot of living beings, and he is the all-attractive living entity, or eternal form amongst all other living beings or eternal forms. Each and every living being has his eternal form in the spiritual existence, and Krishna is the eternal attraction for all of them. Krishna is the complete whole, and everything else is his part and parcel. The relation is one of the servant and the served. It is transcendental and is completely distinct from our experience in material existence. This relation of servant and the served is the most congenial form of intimacy. One can realize it as devotional service progresses. Everyone should engage himself in that transcendental loving service of the Lord, even in the present conditional state of material existence. That will gradually give one the clue to actual life and please him to complete satisfaction. Savai pum sambaro dharmo yatho bhaktir adhoksaje ahaitu kiya pratiyata ya yatma suprasiditi. So there's a few points that are noteworthy, more than a few, but a few that I've noticed. One is that it's important to note the quality of devotional service that we perform. And there are two aspects mentioned here. One is a haituki and other is a pratihata. So this sense of haituki bhakti has some nuance. One is to not perform devotional service for any material gain, and it's especially mentioned in the verse Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karmanyadavritam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttama. That devotional service is a kind of cultivation. Shil is the verb used in anushilanam, and there's two kinds of cultivation. One is one's using one's senses in the service of Krishna, and the other is an internal cultivation of meditating and with emotion on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the admonition given in the verse is that one should perform it without any sense of dependency on other processes. One doesn't have to speculate about the Supreme, nor does one have to perform any kind of karma. Karma, in the traditional sense, is that I'm working in the world, and because I'm naturally accruing karma, a debt, a kind of debt, because I'm living at the expense of others. Therefore, I have to make up for it through various kinds of sacrifices. And there is a sense that I have to perform what's called prayashchitta. I have to make up for these things. But in the Bhagavatam, Krishna mentions Sapadamulam bhajata priyasya taktanya bhavasya hare priyeshaha vikarma yachotpatitam katanchit tunoti sarvam hridhi sanivishta. That because the Lord is Sannivishtaha, he's entered within the heart. He already knows our intention. When our intention is to go on serving him, no matter what kind of transgression we make because of the awkwardness of being in a material body and in the material world, because our mood is to serve Krishna and go on serving him, he makes up for it. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita that if you surrender to me, then I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions. You don't have to make separate arrangements. No separate arrangement is needed except for pure, direct devotional service. And this is the very definition of faith. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kahe Surida Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Kole Sarva Karma Krita Hoy. This Shraddha means that one has an abiding trust that by performing devotional service, direct process, everything else is perfectly taken care of. No other needed ritual besides devotional service. And then there's a pratiyata, which means that we don't stop doing bhakti. It's continuous. We're constantly engaged in devotional service, and we never let the trail go cold. A haituki, a pratiyata, means it's incessant and constant. When one comes to this position of performing devotional service for its own sake, we say service for service, and one's not interrupted in one's service, then there's a way in which this supersedity, or a natural sense of grace, enters within one's heart. One feels completely satisfied. Savai pum samparo dharmo yato bhakti radhoksaje. And this is the formula the sages give for everybody. It's not just for some people, it's not a religion, it's our constitutional position or dharma, or as Prabhupada writes here, what sustains us. The sustaining factor of our life is important because, as in watering a plant, if you don't water it, it'll die. If you water it in the wrong place, it'll also die. So one has to know the science of how to water a plant. And when we do devotional service, then we naturally, by satisfying Krishna, also nourish and satisfy ourselves. This is the example that Prahlad Maharaj gave, which we just heard recently, when he said that if you decorate your face, then naturally when you look in the mirror, you'll see that your reflection is decorated. Because we're part of Krishna, when we satisfy Krishna, who's the whole, then we naturally also feel decorated. When you decorate Krishna, you're decorated. You feel satisfied. This is the perfect formula which is given by the sages at Naimisharanya. Then it comes to application. How can one apply this in one's life? Because everyone's starting from a particular position. And the more that we're able to remember this, and from whatever position we're in now, apply the teaching of being constantly engaged and without any motive, then we'll, to that degree, that we'll feel satisfied. That's the premise of this verse. And now we'll take a few reflections or questions to expand the conversation. Yes, Prabhu. Please. Could we have a mic? Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. So on this point that serving Krishna will satisfy everybody, including ourselves. So the example given is the root of the tree and the mirror decoration, decorating the oneself, and the image is decorated. So these two are analogies. My question is, where do we practically see this happening around us, that if we satisfy Krishna, everybody is satisfied? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. When we perform devotional service, then the people around us also get the benefit. This is something that Parikshit Maharaj noticed when he was sitting and hearing, he was hearing from Shukadev Goswami, but he said there's three kinds of people that are getting benefit around here. One is the speaker, who gets the most benefit. Then the second in line is the hearer, who gets the second most benefit. And the third is everybody around, who also gets to hear or just even see, because the sound vibration itself is mentioned here in the Bhagavatam as having its own power, as it's a non-material vibration. The Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. In and of itself, it's potent and creates good fortune for those who hear it. So one way that we can understand this is that if somebody's performing devotional service for himself or herself, then others around might pick it up. I left home, as I've mentioned many times, and I'm happy to repeat again. I don't know what got into me, but I thought it was a great idea. And I left home and I moved in with the devotees. And I said, this is my new home, this is my new family. And after some years, I went back to visit my family, although they visited me sometimes. I then matured a little bit and went back and visited them. And at that time, I had begun worshiping my own deity. I had a Shalagram Shila that I was carrying with me wherever I went. And so of course, when I went to my parents' house, then I worshipped the Shalagram Shila. And they got very interested in that. Like, what are you doing? And boy, that smells good. People in general don't smell Krishna very much. They smell all kinds of other stuff. I mean, people smoke cigarettes and they have perfume. Like some airports, they stand outside and they try to get you with that stuff. Outside the duty free is like, get away. Or they drink alcohol and then that comes out of their pores. There's a lot of noxious smells, scents here in the material world, but not many people get to smell the incense offered to the Lord. Or there's no real reason in the suburbs for people to pick flowers. In fact, I notice in my neighborhood, I walk around and I look to see how many good gardens there are. And there's not that many. Most people put some grass. Just put some grass and shrubs. Make sure it doesn't have many flowers because we'll just have to clean them up later. Because they have no need for that. But if you're worshiping Krishna in your house, I always think it's funny because for my puja, if I'm outside, I have 2 camellia plants I brought from Japan. I didn't bring them from Japan, by the way, in case immigration or customs is listening. They were legally brought to America because the species there have a scent. I always complained that I think camellia, Garanga the other day gave me a camellia flower. I still have it somewhere. It's so beautiful. But I always complained. I said, how come there's no scent here? This is the worst travesty in the world. This would be the best flower I've ever seen if it had a scent. And then when I was in Japan, I said, oh, they have scent here. They didn't breed it out of the plant. So I got those, and then they're really flourishing in my front yard. So then in the season, there are these beautiful pink flowers all over them that are scented. And I'll be wearing a gamcha, maybe just a chadar with tilak on, and I'm out in the front yard around the time a lot of people are leaving for work. And they're driving off, the exhaust pipes blowing out smoke, and they look at me like, what are you doing, I have a colander and I'm filling it up with flowers. And people don't get to do that in the suburbs, but they'll see me out there collecting flowers, and because I'm worshiping the deity, and it creates an image, and also for 16 years we had programs in our house, and I'm surprised no one ever called the cops, because that was some of the loudest kirtan we ever had in our house. In fact, once I remember when Sri Prahlad came and the roof almost blew off. I was thinking maybe the roof will blow off like in a hurricane. But the neighbors never complained. In fact, they came over. The same neighbors aren't there anymore. They went off somewhere. But they came over a couple times and they said, that was amazing. What are you doing in there? You hear the sound vibration. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was in Navadvip, he had these programs at Srivasa's house. He said, everybody in? No, not you. You guys. He only let in the very sincere devotees, and they had kirtan all night long. And people were listening all over Navadvip, like, what are they doing? And some got envious, and they said, they're hungry. That's why they're howling like that. And they're worshiping some goddess, some demigoddess or something like that. It's some kind of tantric thing they're doing because they were envious. And other people say, no, we can't go in because we're not pure, that's all. And it's a beautiful thing. But it affected all of Navadvip, so much so that some people tried to get in and they couldn't. That's why that Brahmin cursed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you perform devotional service anywhere, people will take notice. In fact, when you pick those little pink flowers, I bring them in and I put them in the colander and wash them, and the bugs come out like, hey, where are we going? Like, you're going at the lotus feet of Krishna. We'll offer you up right here. They'll come walking out and there's the puja going on and there's a little bug. Which bugs in the world get an opportunity to walk into a puja stali all of a sudden? It's like, hey, there's something sweet here. It's like, yeah, that's Charnamrita, buddy. You're drinking it. You're swimming in it. So if somebody performs devotional service, for instance, Sanatana Goswami, his heart was so full of devotion. He was sitting there in Vrindavan and just worshiping the Lord with whatever means he had, which wasn't anything. He had to make chapatis with no salt because, believe it or not, and I hate to break this to everybody, we live a fat life here in America. There used to be no spices in the old days. That's why Columbus was looking for India. Because spices, in fact, pepper, was as expensive as gold by weight as it is now. And think of a life with no cumin. I don't want to shock anybody here. Mustard seeds, turmeric, not available. People didn't have it. So there was no salt at that time. He was just offering some dry chapati, and the Lord said, I appreciate your offerings, but could I get a little salt? And Sanatana Goswami said to his deity, because he had that intimate relationship with him, he said, my Lord, could you just accept what I give you? Because I don't have any salt. And besides, if I give you salt, then you're going to want ghee, and where am I going to get that? And later, as he was just sitting there, a boatman came by, and he happened to be carrying salt, and he got stuck on a sandbar, and he couldn't get free. And the man came up and was looking for some kind of help, and Sanatana Goswami says, pray to Madan Mohan, my deity, he'll help you. So the boatman prayed to the deity, please, if you get me out of this one, I'll build you a temple. So he got him out of it. He made a fortune by selling his salt. Interesting, too, that it was salt, right? Because the deity wanted salt. And then he came back and he built that temple. Madan Mohan temple is so beautiful. It's for the whole world to see. Too bad more people can't see it. You can't build things like that nowadays. Or suppose you can, but it's very rare. And it stands there on in the skyline of Vrindavan, the beautiful Madan Mohan temple. So just the effect of one person performing devotional service in a lonely place, and Krishna makes so many arrangements that the temple will come up. And then look at what Prabhupada did. Because he was carrying bhakti within his heart, he just came to America with no resources. And the picture on the front of that book I wrote, what's it called? Our Family Business? Yeah. He's holding a book. He's in Butler, Pennsylvania. That's where that picture's from. That's why I picked it. It was historical. He was in Butler, Pennsylvania, looking at one of the first volumes that he had printed. And it's as if he's looking out into the world, like, how will this go out? I'm watering the root here, but how will it go out to everybody, he's thinking. And it did. Now, I have this wristband here. It seems impossible, but it says 100K in 2026. That will distribute 100,000 sets of Bhagavatams by 2026. Right? And so, Prabhupada was contemplating, how will this go out? How will this happen? And, in essence, he was thinking like, oh yeah, thanks. A nice reminder. 1995. Just kidding. That's the picture. Yeah, Prabhupada's holding the book and he's contemplating how it will go out to the world. So devotional service happens from an internal level, and Krishna makes arrangements from somebody who's performing devotional service, whether it's locally, like in the verse from that we read the other day, Viprad Vishad Gunayutada Ravindanaba Padaravinda Vimukachva Pachamba Rishnam Manye Chadarpita Mano Vachinehitarta Pranam Punati Sakalamna Tuburi Manaha. These are the machinations of Prahlad Maharaj. And he said that I think that people who are Brahmins, but they don't have any bhakti, they can't save themselves. What to speak of anybody else? He said, but if somebody is a devotee, even if they come from a family of dog eaters, every culture has their own culinary habits. And some places that people would hear about in that culture, they eat dogs. So they would name Shwapacha, people who cook dogs. That's their delicacy. Even those people, that's the kind of consciousness they're in. But if they take to bhakti, he said they can not just purify themselves, but their whole families and everybody else because of the power of bhakti. So if there's one molecule of bhakti, then it affects other people. Bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. From bhakti comes bhakti. And therefore the person who puts some effort into doing this Krishna bhajan, Yastwinder Gopamata Vendra Mahosa Karma Bandhana Rupa Palabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdahati Kintucha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. That person is diminishing his karma, but he's also diminishing the karma of everybody around him. And what to speak of, we need more people who are freed from the lower modes of material nature. As who will lead others except somebody who's achieved freedom from the fetters of the low modes of material nature. And nowadays there's a lack of leadership in the world. In case you haven't noticed, people are scoundrels from top to bottom. And they can't help themselves. Even if they want to do good, they can't do good. They'll pass some law and say, let's pass this law, it'll help people in some way. But then it hurts other people. There's no way to organize yourself in the material world where the cure isn't as bad as the disease itself, Prahlad Maharaj says. But if you can instill bhakti in people's lives, then they rise above the modes of material nature. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatitya brahma bhuyaya kalpate. And they can help themselves, and then they can help free other people from the modes of material nature. So we see, without any exception, if somebody has even a little bit of bhakti, let's thank everyone who joined us online. Thank you, everyone who joined us online. Yes, Kennedy has a question.
I wanted to circle back to the point you'd made about dharma. And the more I dive into studying it, the more I realize that individuality is so important in our creation. And one of the gifts that Krishna gave us is that individuality. And when we align it with Him and we are completely authentic, it comes back to, in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 47, where when we engage ourselves in our own duty, even if imperfectly, it creates space for everyone else to move around us because we're not supposed to be perfect. Krishna's the perfect one. We're just lucky to be here. And it's this beautiful moment where it makes me realize that part of our dharma is to be with each other and to associate, because we fill in the gaps for each other, and that creates space for service. And it's this beautiful cycle he's created for us in the dharmic path.
Nice realizations. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Again, looking at the meaning of the word dharma, it's what sustains us. Go ahead, Tim. I could tell you had something to say.
Hare Krishna. I was trying to put it together, so I just wanted to look something up to double check, but I'll say it anyway. Yeah, it's like what you said. I liked what you said about how if you, in the material world, if we pass one law, it affects somebody else. I remember in econ class, there's a concept called paratio efficiency, but that is only in theory, and a lot of economists try to figure out a way, because paratio efficiency, if I remember correctly, is where you do one thing and everyone is benefited without any loss. It's the ultimate form of efficiency. But it's only a theory. But actually, it's basically what Bhakti Yoga does. You know, like what you said with, like what was asked previously. How if you do something, everyone benefits simultaneously. So I just want to bring that idea up.
Yeah, but, please find it. I'd like to look at it, and we can use that in the future. One of the points of all auspiciousness, this is one of the qualities of devotional service. When you take to devotional service, there's 6 specific benefits that Rupa Goswami brings up. He says that, first of all, you start to feel transcendental pleasure. And then he says it's the beginning of all auspiciousness. And in auspiciousness, he says it's the way that it's the paratio principle. That's what it's called. By this one activity, then all living entities are benefited. A simple example that Prabhupada and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave was that if you become a Vaishnav, you're naturally nonviolent. Some people advocate for nonviolence. In fact, that's their whole point. Gandhi had this whole point of nonviolence, but it reached a point of absurdity when people asked, well, if somebody came and attacked your daughter, would you be nonviolent? He said, yes. And then everyone said, like, well, that philosophy doesn't work practically for us. However, if you're a devotee, then you're naturally nonviolent because, first of all, you offer everything to Krishna, and devotees don't offer things to Krishna that are obtained by extreme violence. And they also have this sense of nonviolence in that if you have medicine and you don't distribute it, then that's also a form of violence. So devotees are preoccupied with giving people the benefit of transcendental knowledge. They distribute it. But devotees are naturally vegetarians. They don't have to start a movement for vegetarianism. It's inherent in the process of bhakti. Sometimes people, in the name of philanthropy, they'll kill animals and then feed people. So everybody gets degraded because the animal doesn't really appreciate it. They don't like being killed. And when people eat animals, then they have to take on the karma of eating the animal. So although you're thinking, I'm doing good, I'm feeding people, it's like the child with the typhoid and the older brother saying, I'll give you a paratha. He says, please just give me a little something. And it's like, here's paratha. It's like, ah! So that's another example of all auspiciousness. Yes, online. Okay, all the way from Mysore, the land of the Mysore Palace and Mysore Pak.
Dandat Pranam, Guru Maharaj, Lishla Prabhupada.
Mysore Pak is a sweet. It's a famous sweet. It only comes from Mysore.
Vaisesika. Maharaj, my question is on this aspect of devotional service. Uh, Actually, before I came to ISKCON, all I had heard of was that Bhakti means devotion. But it's only in ISKCON Prabhupada actually introduced the term Bhakti as he translated it as devotional service. So, could you highlight or talk a little bit about the service aspect of how it is integral to Bhakti? Can you give some references, some shlokas, or if you could tell that how service, if you don't do service, Bhakti is not there, right? Or also the usual things that actually, for example, chanting, Kirtan, and all that we do that others accept as Bhakti, that is also service, right? So, yeah, these two parts, like how service is integral to Bhakti, and the second part is about um, these. There are things which are distinctly service, right? Like actually washing pots, book distribution, all that things like chanting, which is also considered service. So if you could highlight a bit about this, please. Sorry if I was not articulate.
Sure. So, in the mood of Shanta Ras, there's an appreciation for the Supreme. They may sit and contemplate the greatness of the creation of the Lord and relish His great power. And then when there's an urge to serve, we may appreciate somebody, but then when there's a sense that let me do something for that person, this is the beginning of bhakti. So the five rasas that begin with Shanta, we count really from four, or from two, which is the Dasya ras, which means that I'm going to do some service. So there's an active sense that, this person's really great. And then you might think, I wonder if they need a glass of water. Can I do something for them? If you've ever had that urge before, you see somebody that you admire and then you think, wow, could I do something for this person? This is a sense of Dasya awakening. And then, of course, it thickens from there. There's more and more intimate connections with the Krishna and his devotee as one goes into Sakya or friendship, and then there's parental association, and then also this conjugal. So a verse that gives the definition to this kind of use of the senses is given by Rupa Goswami at the very beginning of the picture of Samrita Sindhu, where he says, Sarvopati vanirmuktam tat pravena nirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha sevanam bhaktir uchate. So there's a way in which when he says, by using your senses in the service of Hrishikesh, Isha means the controller, and Hrishi means the senses. So we have senses, but we're only allowed to use them by the mercy of the higher arrangement. They're on loan. However, by engaging those senses with we've decided to use them not for ourselves, but for the service of Krishna, then there's a purification of the senses based on the principle that anything that's used for Krishna becomes transformed. Krishna gives this principle in the Bhagavad Gita when he says, Brahmarpanam Brahmahavir, Brahmagnau Brahmanohutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahmakarma Samadhina. And that is that whatever dravya or material thing that you use in service transforms from being an ordinary material object, and it becomes spiritualized, because matter is just spirit covered over with wrong intention. So it revives its original quality. And one of the ways that Prabhupada used to describe this as is, if you take an iron rod and you place it in fire and you leave it in the fire, then it becomes hotter and hotter, and then it becomes non-different from the fire because of its association with fire. So when we use our senses, our eyes, ears, the most emblematic or iconic figure mentioned in the Bhagavatam is who? Who used all his senses all the time? Ambarish Maharaj. He was king, so he had a lot of resources, and he also, although he could have been busy otherwise, he did all the 9 processes of devotional service all the time, or every day, and continually, hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping. So he engaged everything in Krishna's service. So when one does that, then the senses become purified, and they take on their original quality. Their original quality is that they become spiritually awakened, and there's a great sense of pleasure. The senses are meant for happiness. We have that intuitively that I should get pleasure from my senses, but we engage them in the wrong way. So they become more and more contaminated, and we don't get any pleasure out of the senses. But when you engage them in Krishna's service, then the senses become purified, and you feel a natural sense of satisfaction. So the tongue in chanting Hare Krishna, I mean, what else is the tongue going to do? There's only 2 things it can do, really. You can say things, and you can also eat. Now you may think, well, how is chanting service? There's a lot of people that only use their tongue for service. For instance, a teacher. A teacher just gets up and talks and says, blah, 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 blah. That's going to be on the test, and I'll see you on Monday. And that's how he or she makes a living, just talking. A judge basically just talks too. And they'll just say, guess what? You're free. You get to go home now. And then what happens? You go home. So the tongue's very powerful. It can't be overlooked. And the Padma Purana says, Atashri Krishna namadi nabhaved grayam indriye sevam mukhihi jivado swayam eva spuratida. That the whole process of bhakti yoga begins with the tongue. It's the best kind of service. So if you repeat Krishna's names, it pleases Krishna. One of the ways it pleases Krishna, it's not that he's egocentric. I mean, he can be egocentric and it's not bad because he is everything. We're only connected, this idea of I, we're part of Krishna. He's the whole. So when he displays this sense of I'm the greatest, everything emanates from me, some envious people, as he indicates to Arjuna, some people might be envious. You're not envious, Arjuna, so you can understand this, but other people are like, I even heard a scientist the other day say, who wants to go to heaven anyway? He said, you just go there and just, like a worker bee, line up behind the queen bee and just do service all day or something like that. There's this fear that will be exploited. But Krishna is not exploitative. He's actually the soul of our soul. He's our best well-wisher. So when we say his name, he becomes satisfied, actually. And it says in the 11th canto, 2nd chapter, 55th verse, that, how does that verse start? 11:255? Huh? Vishrujati hridayam na yasya sakshad darirlavisha abhihito gyagyoganasha pranaya rasanaya dritangri padma what? Sabhavati Bhagavata Pradhana Ukta. This is a description by Kavi Yogendra, Kavi Antariksha, who is describing the topmost devotee. And in this verse, let's look at the translation. Your hair will stand on end when you read this. If you don't want to be in ecstasy, just close your eyes and your ears. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is so kind to the conditioned souls that if they call upon him by speaking his holy name, even unintentionally or unwillingly, the Lord is inclined to destroy innumerable sinful reactions in their hearts. Therefore, when a devotee who has taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet chants the holy name of Krishna with genuine love, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can never give up the heart of such a devotee. one who has thus captured the Supreme Lord within his heart, is to be known as Bhagavat Pradhana, the most exalted devotee of the Lord. Chanting's no small thing, right? Somebody accidentally says. Prabhu, Govinda. We'll give you a mic.
Can I? Hi, Guruji. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yep, I have a question. Like, I am Bhaskar. I work as a software engineer, and I live with wife and 15 years daughter and 10 years son. So I feel I got into a rat race, like in the work-related, like stresses and personal, like it's family-related stresses. So like I want to like get out of from the rat race. So but I could not find, like how I try, but I couldn't find the way to. And like day by day, I go into deep into that circle and like never come out of it. So.
Thank you, Bhaskar Prabhu. What a nice question. And I think we can all relate to that. That's the point, this term rat race. There's a sense of just running after cheese down different holes. Some holes don't have any cheese in them. You still got to go down the hole. And the anxiety that comes along with the various responsibilities. There's an artificial standard in society nowadays where you have to work extra hard just to own, the natural resources that you need to be sheltered. You got to get a house, but just the property tax alone is more than most people make, and most countries make gross national product. So, yeah, what's the solution to that? Well, fortunately, there is a solution. Krishna gives various solutions in the Bhagavad Gita. One he suggests is that whatever you're doing right now, he says, Yat koroshi yadashnashi, yat johosi dadasiyat, yat tapasyasi kontiya, tat kurushva mararpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, do as an offering to me. Become Krishna-centric. So oftentimes we live in a situation where we think that, well, once I get out of this, then I'll worship Krishna. And once I get a little free from this, as soon as I have my first $1 million, then I'll have a little peace. But peace doesn't come at $1 million. It doesn't come at 3 million either, I'm sorry. It doesn't come at 50 million. There's no peace in acquisition in the material world. We're still always in anxiety. So Krishna says, start from where you are. So, yakoroshi adashnashi, whatever you're doing now, he said, make it as an offering to me. And that consciousness of offering the things that you're already doing to Krishna is transformative. Well, one may say, well, how do I offer my work to Krishna? I work in a what? Well, let's just say I work in a cubicle. So that covers most people. So I work in a cubicle, so, staring at the screen, right. Welcome to the club, right? So what do? So Krishna gives a suggestion, if you want to go a faster route. He says, whatever you're getting in return, we don't work for nothing, right? If your boss calls you on Monday and says, you can still come into work, we're just not going to pay you, then are you going to go? Not so much. We're not working for the boss, we're working for the salary. We work for money. So Krishna says that's the fruit of your work. So he says, then take some of that came to you. You get your check, right? Is it a check? Comes in a check? Not even that? What? It's direct deposit? Okay, we'll set up before the direct deposit, have a little diversion that goes out and says, okay, I earned $200, so I'm going to give 20. If you give something out of what's coming in, it'll really catch your attention because everyone's thinking, I'm working hard, I want to see the result, right? So then this is counterintuitive, and I know it sounds really crazy, but if you take some of that and you say, every month I'm going to give it to Krishna. I'll either bring it in, put it in the hundi, that box up there, which you know better than me, the hundi, what a hundi is. Indians know hundis. They love them because they're so pious. So you put money in the hundi, and if you put, like you were going to put $5 and you accidentally put 50, right? You can't take it out, right? So all night long it's like, why did I put 50? And you'll be thinking of Krishna all night long because it's in Krishna's hundi. It's like Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. So there's a way that if we divert some of the fruit that we're getting from our hard labor, that gets counted as devotional service. And you can start thinking that I'm doing this for Krishna. I'm only taking what I need to take what you need. Everyone knows what they need. You figure it out. Do the math. Figure out what you need. And then give part of it to Krishna. And if you can't, then earn more or spend less. So there's this principle that if you want to develop wealth, you have to put away 10% of your gross, right? Every month you have to put it away. And so if you just do that for Krishna, Prabhupada mentions in the life of the Prachetas, they did some severe austerities. You don't have to do this. But they lived underwater for 10,000 years. Because ostensibly it's nobody can call you down there. Cell phones don't work, nothing. They did their meditation. And Prabhupada mentions if anybody, like they did 10,000 years, at that time they lived for 100,000 years. So then they used 10% of their life in this austerity. So then they're perfect. So take 10% of your income, 10% of your time, whatever it is, and give it to Krishna. Like you're here now. So that's a big thing, right? You're here. You could be anywhere. You could be out playing cricket, but you're here. So now, you're giving that to Krishna, and just keep doing that. And the more you give to Krishna, the more you realize that you're happy, because when we take things that don't belong to us, then we feel an anxiety. That's why the $1 million doesn't help. Prabhu. And then we have, let's see. Who is that? Okay. We need tech support on
Hare Krishna.
aisle 1.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Can I introduce someone newcomer?
Yes, please.
So Casey is joining here for the first time. I met him last year in Montana. He studies in Montana State University. He's a student there. And he's very sincere, enthusiastic, and serious about devotional service. He's been chanting and reading Shrimad Bhagavatam, and we meet thrice a week. We are about to finish Bhagavad Gita, so he's joining here for the first time.
Welcome, Casey.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much, Krishna. Yeah, I chanted 2 whole rounds yesterday, which is like my... Yeah, and my headache that I have a lot kind of just went away after that. So it was I felt really blessed. It was awesome. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Casey. It's good to see you here from Montana, and go Montana State University.
Heck yeah.
You're doing great. What are you studying there?
Biomedical engineering.
Oh yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
That's a really good niche, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the Bhakti stuff has taught me that, health comes from things that, material methods can't necessarily engineer in the body. So it feels a little bit on the periphery of what's important. But yeah, as far as like getting a hireable degree while we play this material game, it seems to be a good option for me. So
yeah, that's a good way to put it, because we have 2 parts to our life. One is called Vyavaharika. It means you have to live somewhere, you have to pay the rent, and you have to play your role, as you're indicating. And the other side, we have our ultimate goal of life, which is called Paramartika. And we have to do that simultaneous. It's a kind of balancing act that we have here in the material worlds. So it's nice that you recognize that. So well done, and welcome to the Bhakti family. We're so happy to have you out there representing Montana.
thank you so much.
We'll all come out and see you. I hear it's, is Montana big sky country?
Yeah, and I live right next to Glacier National Park, which I believe is probably one of the prettiest places on earth. So really
Who wants
lucky
to
get
go to
be here.
Montana? Okay, get ready, we're coming.
All right. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It reminds me, when I was in Alachua, we went out for a monthly Sankirtan festival, and we had about 8 teams, because there's so many devotees in Alachua. We went to different parts of the city, and what happened was, as the day went on, the devotees would join, they were all coming together in one group. So gradually the group, the last spot got bigger and bigger. And I was going door to door, and at one point we had about 67 devotees. And I knocked on the last door, and the guy opened the door, and there was 67 devotees standing there. I was just thinking we could show up at Casey's house. Okay. Shweta.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I would have been there in person, but I'm down with COVID since the last few days. So thank you for the wonderful class. So I'm a returning devotee from ISKCON. I was raised a Madhva, a Brahmin, and I've been a vegetarian all my life. And recently I turned vegan. And you just made a comment about the karma, right? So when we kill animals, we get their karma. So my question is also about, so when we consume any animal products, byproduct, milk, dairy, or honey, what about that? Is that also considered as getting karma?
Well, we're not vegetarians, actually. This is not our designation as devotees. We're prasadam-atarians. We take only what Krishna takes. So we offer first to Krishna and then we take. Otherwise, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that anything that you eat that you don't first offer and sacrifice is detrimental to your physical, mental, spiritual health. So that's the first principle, because you really can't, the argument about vegan, vegetarian, and the different iterations of all those things is endless. So the point is that everything should be offered to Krishna. Now, in the very beginning stages, as Krishna says, yat kodashi yat ashnashi yat johosi dadasi yat, whatever you're doing now, offer it to Krishna, whatever it is. And then when one becomes more refined and thinking like, well, what does Krishna want me to offer? Then one thinks of the things that are offerable to Krishna. So then one offers those types of things. So in the process of doing that, there are various kinds of foodstuff. For instance, milk. It's part of the culture in Vrindavan and everywhere else to protect cows. So just last week, Jamuna and Todd invited 2 beautiful cows to their ashram. They took great pains to build a barn, and it's in Monterey Valley. Hop, skip, and a jump. Be down there in 1 hour and 59 minutes. And they have beautiful cows there who are giving milk and so forth. So that milk from the cows is then offered to Krishna. Cows are lovingly taken care of. That's the ideal culture. And when Prabhupada first came to America, there were no goshalas, there were no places to protect cows. Nonetheless, he would still offer milk and so forth. He did advocate for developing the culture where we could take care of cows. So here at ISV, we have whatever we offer to the deities, we take from goshalas. We've gone out a great length to make sure we take milk that comes from cows that are protected. In any case, the items that one takes from the environment when offered to Krishna, they bring benefit to the entity who offered them also. And there's a way in which if you take a fruit from a tree or a vegetable or so forth, and you offer it, then the tree or the plant gets benefit from offering. So that's the principle, that one should take those things that are offerable to Krishna, and they're mentioned in various places. The foods that are in the mode of goodness, like milk, and offer it to Krishna, and then take the prasad. Yes. We'll just take two more.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have a question regarding Varnashrama dharma. If it's considered like favorable for performing devotional service, to what extent we should like reinstate it and should follow the rules and regulations? Because it's so many, it's impossible, like obviously, to follow everything nowadays.
Yes, that's the Varnashrama is a way. We should think, what is Varnashrama first? What's the purpose behind it? It's always good to ask why you're doing something before you do it. And just to put it in a very abstract form, if you have 2 feet on the ground and you're balanced, then you can jump up high. If you're out of balance on 1 foot, hard for you to do that. There's a way that everybody needs to fit into this world, and in a way that they can feel balanced. Some people feel balanced when they're in one ashram or another ashram. Therefore, you have to be in a natural condition of life. Prabhupada writes about this in the 8th canto of the Shrimad Bhagavatam in regards to the story of Gajendra. He was very strong on the land, but in the water he was so weak that he couldn't fight off the crocodile. So we have to be in a position of strength. So the ways that we organize our lives so that we can be in a natural condition and strong enough to perform devotional service with strength. Hey, Govinda, did we get your question? Or did we bypass you? Can you come back? You got to go? Oh, okay. Then this is the purpose behind Varnashrama. It's not simply to arbitrarily categorize people in certain ways, but it's to provide a venues for people or lifestyles so that they can feel naturally engaged in a way that's productive and which doesn't degrade one. So the idea behind Varnashrama is there are these Varnas and ashramas. People have natural proclivities towards certain kinds of work. So the society is set up. This is ideas Plato, Socrates talked about also, of ways to organize human society so that people would be most productive. So when they have a certain nature, there's a way to engage them. In the idea of a democratic society, which isn't really being carried out so much nowadays. There's supposed to be universal education for everybody, so everybody comes to the same level of intelligence and discrimination so they can elect rulers that will help out. It's not working that well because, anyway, forget the details. The point is that when you recognize and you make facility for people who have particular proclivities, and you give them training in that so that they can take up their vocation with gusto, you don't waste a lot of time in human life. These are the Varnas. If somebody is obviously a warrior, they would be given the facility to protect others and trained up how to do it. The Vietnam War was just a mess. I was there, not in the war. I fell right through the cracks and missed it, but what happened was the government just through conscription just said everybody's got to join the military for this age. And there were a lot of kids that went in there, they weren't ready. Of course, they tried to get him ready in boot camp, but it wasn't their nature. They'd take anybody. But even they had a sense of Varnashram, because if you went in there and you were really smart, they'd say, well, we'll send you to Monterey, you can learn a language, and then you can, do something else, or you can do some coding or something like that. It's kind of natural for people to figure out everybody else, go to the front lines and, just be cannon fodder for the war. So this is the organization of society. And then ashrama, at different times of your life, you're most productive. For instance, in the younger years, there's a sense of being a student, you can learn a lot. And then as you start to go over, most people want to get a place and put some stuff in it, and then have a partner and work there. So then that's provided for. And then there's a time in your life when you're like, well, maybe you'll be a little detached. So there's a facility for that called the vanaprastha. And then after that, it's like, okay, that's it. We're in the final phase here. I'm about to leave the world. Let me just fully focus on this. There's a facility for that. That's how it's organized. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur thought it was important enough to bring out what he called Daivi Varnashrama. It's not the Varnashrama that is all these picayune little duties that you have to do to avoid the karma of the material world, but it's categorically set up so that one can be situated in the right place so that one can go on doing one's devotional service. So yeah, it's important. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. We're going to have a couple of Yes? Yeah, Govinda. Psych. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, thank you for the excellent class, Prabhu. So actually, you quoted 11 to 55. That was an amazing verse. And one of the aspects of that, it reminded me of something else as well, which I heard recently from Sri Radha Govind Maharaj's lecture. And it was on Ajamil Katha. And he quoted a new verse which was very striking, very precise as well. And he mentioned that Nam Ucharak Vishaya Vishnu Mati Bhavati. See, he says that he was glorifying the holy name, that whoever chants the holy name, Nam Ucharak Vishaya, Vishnu, so Lord Vishnu starts thinking about it, about him. And then he thinks his mind is of this nature that Madiyoyam, that this person belongs to me, Madiyoyam. And then Maya Sarvato Rakshaniyati, that this person he deserves to be protected by me by all means, at all times. So that was extremely beautiful verse, and I just wanted to mention. Hare Krishna.
Where's the verse from?
This he did not mention, of course.
Oh, okay.
We
okay.
I have
from
to
a commentary or something.
Yeah, from a tika, yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Most of his, they are from tika.
Thank you very much. Now we have a couple of announcements. And who's making the announcement for Bhakti community today?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I think Kennedy can do the announcement for us today.
Okay, Kennedy, come on up. Let's bring her up here again.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Pavani Mataji, if you don't mind giving me maybe like a starting line or something, I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to be saying.
Yeah, you can start with Bhakti Community is an online community.
Yeah, so we have Bhakti Community online. We do it twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. It's an amazing community that just keeps building and increasing in love for Krishna and each other and the community itself. We've had some amazing people, Shweta, who you guys got to see today, joined us. as well. And it's been incredible to see the conversations not only increase our knowledge, but increase our realization and understanding of how we even got here, and to understand the journeys of each individual and how that was divined by Krishna for us all to meet each other and be able to discuss the philosophy.
Haribol! Bravo! Thank you so much, Kennedy. It meant everything coming from you, since you're one of the great success stories of the Bhakti community. And now we're going to hear from Malini for the Sankirtan. Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhuji, always Prabhupada. We have started our Bhakti Vinod Thakur monthly Sankirtan festival, and we are inching towards our goal. Our ultimate goal is to distribute at least 3,000 Shrimad Bhagavatam sets by Bhadra Purnima. So our Bhakti Vinod Thakur MSF is the milestone in between before we get there. So we have seen that devotees are distributing so many Bhagavatam sets on the streets, on the doors. We have seen so much of success. Last week when we went door to door, one person, as soon as we went onto the door, she was a simple lady. She runs a daycare. And when she came out to the door, we thought, I don't know, she didn't even speak proper English. We thought maybe she will not take the Bhagavatam. We didn't know what she was doing. And Achyuta Kumar Prabhu was there. They were explaining the Shrimad Bhagavatam to her. And in just 2 or 3 minutes, she says, yes, I will take it. And then later she went and she got the Lakshmi, whatever she had. And then she paid $100 and she took a Telugu Shrimad Bhagavatam set. And she said, yes, everybody should read it. I want to read it. So we cannot assume who will take a Bhagavatam and who will not take a Bhagavatam. We should try to present to everybody. We have seen so much of success. People are taking Bhagavatam. And one person, he spent almost an hour with the devotees and he was crying, saying that I've been following this path. I don't know what to do, but we are hoping and praying that Shrimad Bhagavatam will help him. So we are inching towards our goal, just started actually. And we are going door to door again this week, Fremont, Cupertino, and we will go to Dublin, Pleasanton. And there's also a team in Mountain House area started by Suvarna Gopika Mataji and her team. They're also going out. And Western Sankirtan team spots. Kautukarna Prabhu or somebody, would you like to present your spots?
So one team has already left for Muirwoods, and there will be...
His team's already gone. Muirwoods.
Yeah, and there will be Mountain View downtown. And
Mountain View downtown.
And Santa Cruz. Yeah.
In Santa Cruz?
Yes.
Wow. That's a big deal.
That's all, Prabhu. We request your prayers for our Bhadra Purnima MSF, where we could distribute at least 3,000 Shrimad Bhagavatam sets. Thank you.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev. If you so desire, please empower us to distribute at least 3,000 Bhagavatam sets by Bhadra Purnima this year, 2023. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. I also want to say a word of prayer for my dear disciple, Ishvara Chandrapuri Prabhu, who is very, very absorbed in devotional service. He's working in Mississippi under the tutelage of Sri Rag Prabhu. If you don't know him, please try to know him sometime. He's an amazing devotee, Prabhupada disciple. If you see many of the temples and ashrams around the world that you'll visit, and you'll say, wow, this is nice. He built it. He builds pujari rooms, temples, things. He's constantly in action doing service for Krishna, especially by building. He's a very strong sadhana. His son is Radhishamananda, you might know. And Ishvara Chandrapuri Prabhu went there to work under him, and on Wednesday He had just gone for a laundry run early in the morning, and his car skidded off the road and flipped, and he was unfortunately killed in the accident. He was listening to a Kirtan when it happened, and when the highway patrol got there, the Kirtan was still going, even though Ishvara had already left his body. And parents, he comes from a very devoutly Catholic family in Los Angeles, and Aitota Prabhu called me yesterday and told me that he and a couple other devotees, Spanish speakers, had gone there to meet with the family, and they were so distraught that they were just sitting together in a room. He had siblings and also mother, father there, and that they didn't know much about his life. He didn't check in with them that much about his devotional service or what he was doing and so forth. So they had all kinds of misapprehensions about what had happened to him and so forth. So when the devotees went there, they had spoken to them and told them all that happened. And then when they understood what a life he had and how he had devoted his life to God and how he had left and so forth, then they embraced these devotees and really kind of brought them into the family atmosphere there. And that was a very heartfelt experience. They were flying out there, the family, to see, where he lived in Mississippi and so forth. It was just a reminder in a couple levels to always be aware that anytime we can make a misstep in this world, and it, our life is very tenuous here. We can one little move in the wrong way, or just material nature acting out. Whatever way it happens, we should be ready at all times. Also a reminder to wear your safety belts. I don't know if you do, but you should. It's important. Statistics show that you live longer if you wear a safety belt. And also, it's very important to have a last will and testament. Many people wait till it's too late, and then it's very confusing. Because one thing is what to do with your body afterwards becomes very contentious with some people. And it's good to put it in writing exactly what you want to happen and make sure that everybody in your family has a copy of it. And you have a copy in your safe at home too. So there's no misunderstanding after you leave. There's a Vaishnava way in which the body's taken care of after you leave, cremation, and then taking the body to the ashes to a sacred river like the Ganges. But a lot of people don't know that, and they won't cooperate with it unless you have specifically stated it. So I recommend that also. Don't take it lightly or think that it's never going to happen. It will. It's inevitable, so be ready for it. It's a much more sattvic way to leave if you prepare yourself and everything, and don't think that you're too young for it to happen, because Ishvara Chandra Prabhu wasn't even 30 yet. He's very young. So I pray to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to keep him under the shelter of his lotus feet, and may the hearts of his relatives and all his God siblings and all the devotees will be assuaged by the fact that he was engaged in such intense devotional service. Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna. Now we have from the rising pundits in our group, Rasheshwari Leela is going to bring up a couple of our speakers. Let's welcome them. You can move me out. You can take this out. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for the introduction, the kind introduction. We are very grateful for this opportunity to continue our series of presentations by the youth of ISV. And today we have Karthika, who is also part of our 12 to 14-year age group, Kaishura class of the Sunday school. And Karthika's family, who's also here, actually, they started to come to Sunday school beginning of last school year. So in August, I believe, right? And we would be very grateful to see what she has to say today and also encourage them. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, everyone. My name is Karthika and I'm 12 years old. I will be presenting Chapter 3 from Bhagavad-Viveka, How to Deal with Seniors and Juniors. Okay, introduction. This presentation is about how we should deal with seniors and juniors. A senior is someone who's more qualified than a person. A junior is someone who's less qualified than a person. This presentation will cover how to maintain a healthy relationship with anyone, whether it's parent to child, teacher to student, master to servant, and so on. Obedience. Obedience is very valued in the Vedic culture and holy scriptures. An example of this is when Lord Ramachandra always satisfied his gurus and his parents, even though some of their tasks were hard. Another example is when the demons, led by Bali, lost in a battle but got revived by Shukracharya, which Bali became grateful for and served him. This shows that by completing one's task, they receive blessings and success. Interference with independence. When someone interferes or alters with one's choices and opinions, it makes the junior feel small. Instead of interfering, correcting them is better, but pampering them also isn't right. And a sentence in Bhagavad-Viveka mentions, a father can easily give his child the answer to a simple problem of addition or multiplication, but unless he restrains himself from doing so, the child may not learn arithmetic. Fortified to mortified. Everybody makes mistakes, but correcting them isn't always necessary. Stopping a junior from making a mistake is also stopping them from growing. A senior's job to a junior is to keep them inspired and enthusiastic to continue the task. The patience to rectify repeatedly. Seniors should show patience to the junior. An example of this is when Indra got intoxicated by his power when Krishna canceled the Indra Puja. After days of destruction in Vrindavan, he realized his mistake, and Krishna still gave him a warning and forgave him. This is a good example of patience from a senior. Forgiveness for honest repentance. Forgiveness is important from a senior. An example of this is when Lord Brahma stole Lord Krishna's friends and the cows, but after realizing his mistake, Krishna still gave another chance and forgave him. Summary of the chapter. In summary, when met by a more qualified person, we should feel happy, not envious. When we are met by a less qualified person, we should show compassion, not contempt. And when we are met by an equally qualified person, we should be friendly, not competitive. If one follows these rules, they can handle any type of person. Thank you for listening. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your talk. I thought it was a perfect mix of philosophy and practical steps that we can take. And I loved how you added the various leelas in as examples. It was so nicely composed. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
I think we have a couple of more minutes if anyone has any comments, questions, or reflections.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for this. So my question is, how do we know from our minute perspective who is more qualified and who's not? Sometimes we may judge someone to be less qualified, but that would be our enviousness, and we may act wrong in that respect. So I had two actually. This is my first question. So.
It didn't really specify in the chapter, but I think, like in my opinion, I guess, I'm not sure actually.
That's okay. And I think the other question I had was, again, if there are two seniors and both have contradictory opinions, we are the junior. I mean, how do we know how to react? I mean, that would be my second question. I'm sorry.
I think like you don't really argue, but you just share from each side you look at other people's perspective, and then like you, instead of just defending your own perspective, like try to look at the other person's perspective too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What was the first question?
I think the first question.
How do you know somebody's qualified?
We might judge
More
someone
qualified,
out of
less
our
qualified?
enviousness that someone is less qualified, but actually we should. I mean, we might not realize that that person is actually a senior.
That's a good point, because I vaguely remember a story about teacher sending out two different students to find out somebody who was better than them. Was it Duryodhan was sent out? And Duryodhan came back and said, I can't find anybody that's better than me. And who was the second one? And Yudhishthira went out and said that everybody's better than me. So a lot of it has to do with perspective of the person. You have to be willing and open to looking for the subtleties of how somebody is qualified or not qualified. But for somebody with Yudhishthira's type of vision, you can see something good in everyone. But I think the point of your class is that you have to look for it and see how you can resonate with those different types of people, because if you act out of the category, then it can cause some type of consternation in the minds of the people. So learning is one, and seniority. Like in initiation, Prabhupada once, when Pradumna said he was sitting with one of his godbrothers, and he was sitting a little further up, closer to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada then said to Pradumna, he said, you should sit back a little bit because he's your da, meaning that he's your senior. And so Pradumna moved back a couple inches behind him. So Prabhupada noted that also. So sometimes it's by, when somebody was initiated, sometimes people are more qualified by learning, and obviously that's something that you have to intuit, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Karthika. That was wonderful. And I was reminded when Amarendra Prabhu was here, he said, Adidas is Adidas. That's how devotees look at, right? And so we are very grateful to you for your devotional attitude and presenting the wonderful presentation. And this is from Bhagavad Viveka, as we heard. So thank you so much for listening, and we will continue next week, and we'll hand over for the next part of the program.
We'll have Guru Puja now, so we can put away all the asanas, and we'll gather in front of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Namasheshtam manamapi shachiputram atra sarupam Shirupam tasya grajam uruparim maturim goshtavatim Radha kundam girivadamaho radhika madhavasham Prapto yasya pratita kripaya Shigurum tam natosmi He Guru Gyanadadina Bandho Swananda Data Karunaika Sindho Vrindavana Sinahitavata Prasida Radha Pranaya Prachara He Dina Bandho Karunaika Sindho Kuru Prasada Mai Manda Mudhe Laksha Paradhe Bahupapa Gadhe Tatpada Padme Stumatishta Krishne Naivo Payantya Pachitim Kavayasta Vesha Brahma Yusha Prikritim Riddha Punasmaranta Yontar Bahistanubritam Ashubam Badunvan Acharya Chaitya Vapusha Swagatim Vyanakti. I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have obtained the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Shachimata, the association of Srila Sarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatan Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kund in Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. O spiritual master, O giver of divine wisdom, O friend of the fallen, you are the giver of your own bliss, and we are the only ocean of mercy. Although dwelling in Vrindavan, you have descended for the welfare of fallen souls like myself, and you are preaching the divine love of Radha for Krishna. Please be kind upon me. O friend of the lowly, O Gurudev, you are the only ocean of mercy. I am a dull fool and have committed hundreds of thousands of offenses. I have fallen into a dense myriad of sins. Therefore grace me with your mercy, so that my mind may be fixed on your lotus feet and on Sri Krishna. O my Lord, transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. Our only wish is to have our consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens our darkened eyes and fills our hearts with transcendental knowledge. He is our Lord, birth after birth. For him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and the master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. Sri Guru Charana Padma jahar prasare vai bhavatu viyaja. Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoy se. Gurumukha padma bhakya chitete koriya oikya. Gurumukha padma bhakya chitete koriya oikya. Guru charane rati aishe yutamagati. Shri Guru charane rati aishe yutamagati. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanande. Bhakti Vihari. I'm going to use them all up. Radha Madan Mohan. Radha Govinda.
Radha Kunja Vihari.
Whoa! Radha Kunja Vihari.
Radha Damodar.
Radha Damodara.
Radha Vrindavan-chandra.
Radha Kali.
Radha Shama Sundar.
Radha Shama Sundar.
Mayapuri Dham. Kishore Kishori.
Kishore Kishore.
Radha Gopi-Rai.
Rukmini Dasa.
Rukmini Gokari. Radha Kishore Gopinath.
Vitthal Rukmini.
Radha Radha Radha.
Radha Sham Sundar.
Radha Kunja Vihari.
Kishore Kishori.
Kishore Kishore. Radha Girihari. Bhajare. I say Shri Bhagavan ko mere barambar pranam hai. Mere barambar pranam hai. I say Shri Jnana Shyam ko mere barambar pranam hai. I say Shri Jnana Shyam ko mere barambar pranam hai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Gaur Premanande. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Prema Dwani. I mean, Prema. Hamsadwani. Try. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajakacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Shrimad Abhay Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajakacharya Ashtottara Shatashi Shrimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sri Mayapur Navaditam Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Ram Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. All glories to the Assembled Devotees. Go Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Thank you everyone for coming out for the Monday program, Saturday program. I don't know what planet I'm on. So it's really important to hear and chant together. It's the purpose of our organization, actually. And it's also important for each one of us to take care of ourselves for others. As when we take care of ourselves, both in body, mind, and spirit, then we can serve everyone else better. So it's kind of our responsibility as servants. In the true mood of a servant, take care of ourselves so that we have the wherewithal to take care of others. It's important. It's also important in a community that we're focused on cooperation and devotional service. There's so many things going on in the world, and to help one another stay in the mood of devotional service. When we see somebody who needs encouragement, it's not a bad idea to reach out and encourage. It doesn't have to be a reason. You don't have to want anything in return. In fact, it's better to do at times when you feel the inspiration to encourage devotees or appreciate them, just to do it. Because that's one of the ways in which Kunti Devi says, Grananti, that by appreciating the devotional service of others, we also grow. Oh, it's a miracle that we're all together, actually. It's Prabhupada's mercy. He thought it up. He wanted this to happen. But we have to maintain it. We have to maintain ourselves. And we have to remember, too, that devotional service, pure devotional service is our goal. And to stay fixed in that process. And also remember that we're living in the material world, which means that anything can happen here. So don't be surprised when it does. Be better prepared than be surprised when things happen in this world. Does that sound reasonable? And also, as a community, we exist here in time in Silicon Valley. We have an opportunity together. When we look at our yearbook from this year, it'll be different from the one that we look at in 2032. You know, devotees will be grown up, some will be gone. It changes, it moves on. But while we're here, let's really make an impact. We'd like to spread out all over the Bay Area. We see mountain houses coming up. And try to do your level best wherever you are to expand the Sankirtan movement. Book distribution is one of the most important aspects of our Sankirtan movement worldwide. It's recognized by the great Acharyas. Srila Prabhupada recognized it. And anywhere you go, devotees will also appreciate the fact that you're distributing books. So the fact that you're putting some austerity into it, anxiety, austerity, time, and so forth, it's not a bad thing. You have to put some austerity into something. Otherwise, if you just lie down and scroll, there's no point to life anyway. And you don't really get anything out of it. But if you do put some anxiety into this and some, as you're doing, the sweat of your own brow, going out to meet people and give them transcendental literature, then you'll get eternal credit. And it's edifying to see how we can gather our resources and develop capacity more and more here at ISV. It's something that can be exported out to other places, whatever we get here, in the way of seeing how the whole world can expand in book distribution. And as a reminder, a few years ago when we were over on Bascom Street, I remember being in the parking lot one night, maybe 10, 15 years ago, and we all had this talk. We were standing in a circle and we were talking about how wouldn't it be nice if someday here at ISV we could distribute at least 500 sets of Bhagavatams in 1 year. Do you remember that? You were there. And we said that it sounded so fantastical that it was like a dream, but at the same time we knew we could do it. And lo and behold, here we are. This year our goal is 3,000 sets of Bhagavatams, which is no small thing because every year we push harder and we think, whoa, how could it even expand from there? But that's where we make advancement and depending on Krishna and thinking of ways that we can. Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction that an Uttama Adhikari is one who's very strict in practicing sadhana and also thinks 24 hours a day how to expand the Sankirtan movement. That's his definition of an Uttamadhikari. So this is what we're doing here, and it's really important. And it's also important to keep really high standard as far as enthusiasm for service, because when there's a lot of devotees each doing a little bit, like I saw, Vrindarani ran over and she grabbed the lamp and took it into the Pujari room. When you see something, do something. When you see an opportunity to take over for somebody who's been washing pots, try to volunteer, even if it's once a week. If you see an opportunity to serve prasadam, that's a really high service, to be on the prasadam line and serve out. And just go for it. And, get into some kind of service, because then you'll be in the inner circle and you'll make more advancement. So there's unlimited service for us to do here. We have big plans. We're looking to expanding the educational system here and all the other aspects of what we have. And if we give ourselves to pure devotional service and chanting and do the best we can, then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yogakshema Mahamyaham, I'll carry what you lack and preserve what you have. Om Tat Sat. Anybody have any announcements for the day that got left out? Yes. We have the cooks. Hare Krishna.
Now, today's prasadam was cooked by Koladweep Pran Prabhu, Simantani Saki Mataji, Bimala Mataji, Dhira Prashant Prabhu, and Shama Bhakta Prabhu.
Haribo! Anything else? Anyone else? Let's sing a little Bengali. What do you think? Okay. Our favorite Bengali song. Sharir advidya jal jodendriya taika. We're born into ignorance in this body, but Krishna is very kind. He's given us prasadam. And by that prasadam, we can overcome all the material modes of nature. Shari advidya jal jodendriya taika. Go Premanande, Nitai Goda Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Goda Hari Bol. Please come take prasadam, Hari Bol.